He broke one mirror and unleashed every version of himself that was never meant to exist. When you lose contact with someone for over a decade, you assume one of two things. They've moved on or they're dead. With my Uncle Francis, it turns out both were true. The letter came on a cold Tuesday morning. No return address. Just a yellowing envelope with my name handwritten on the front. Jason Miller. I hadn't heard from Uncle Francis in over 14 years since the night my parents died and he disappeared without a word. No texts, no phone calls, no trace until now. I sat at my kitchen table in my small apartment outside Marietta, Georgia, staring at the envelope like it was something alive. Inside was a letter. If you're reading this, I'm likely already dead. I've made mistakes, Jason. I thought I could outrun what happened in Willow Creek, but it followed me back. And now, the house is waking up again. I need you to come. Don't bring anyone. Don't stay past sundown. And whatever you do, don't trust the mirrors. You'll find the key in the attic box I left you after the funeral. You know the one. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it either. Uncle Francis was strange, always was. He told weird stories about haunted forests, cursed symbols, and people vanishing in plain sight. When I was a kid, he'd whisper bedtime stories that made me afraid to sleep. Everyone said he was paranoid, delusional, probably schizophrenic. But now, reading his letter, something inside me stirred. A memory, a sound, a whisper. The drive north into Tennessee took 6 hours. The sky was overcast. Clouds hung low like the world was holding its breath. I arrived in Willow Creek just before 4 p.m., a ghost town tucked away in the Appalachian foothills. Nothing but an abandoned gas station, a rotting post office, and one long dirt road leading into the woods. At the end of that road stood a house, 3 stories tall, Victorian style, towering over the landscape like it didn't belong there anymore. The Elder Pines estate. The house looked like it had been swallowed by the forest and spit back out. Twisted trees surrounded it on all sides. Their branches gnarled like fingers reaching for the sky. The air was dead silent. As I stepped out of the car, the wind stopped. No birds, no bugs, no breeze, just nothing. The front door was cracked open. I should have turned around and left right then, but I didn't. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air was ice cold, thick with dust and the scent of old wood. Sheets covered the furniture like shrouds. Paint peeled from the walls. But what caught my eye, what froze me to the spot, were the mirrors. They were everywhere, some built into the walls. Others leaned against furniture. Tall, narrow ones that seemed too clean, too clear, and some that weren't reflecting right. I swear, one of them showed me blinking. A second too late. I called out, "Uncle Francis?" No answer. Then I saw a trail of blood, faint, dried, leading up the staircase to the second floor. I followed it, heart pounding louder than my footsteps. The hallway upstairs was lined with dusty portraits. People with blank eyes, half-erased smiles, and something wrong about them you couldn't quite name. The blood trail ended at a door on the left. It was slightly open. I pushed it. Inside was a room that hadn't been touched by time. Clean floors, curtains swaying despite the shut window. And in the middle of the room, Facing a massive wall-length mirror sat Uncle Francis, dead, slumped in a wooden chair, his face pale and frozen in horror. A knife lay on the floor beneath his hand. Blood had soaked into the carpet, forming dark blotches. But behind him, written in blood across the mirror, were 3 words, "IT lives here." And then I heard it, a whisper. So soft I thought I imagined it. "Jasun?" I turned. The mirror was glowing faintly, and my reflection was gone. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Standing there in that upstairs room, staring at the mirror, at myself, or the lack of myself, every part of my body wanted to run, to vomit, to wake up, but I couldn't move, because in the mirror my reflection was gone. And Uncle Francis was smiling. He stood right behind the chair where his dead body had been moments earlier. Except in the mirror, he wasn't dead. He looked alive, eyes open, skin flushed. And he was watching me, watching something I couldn't see through the glass. He raised his finger and pointed to the corner of the mirror. I followed the gesture. That's when I saw it. A door inside the mirror. One that didn't exist in the real room. A narrow black door with something scratched into it. Something that looked like claw marks. Behind me, the real world groaned. A floorboard creaked, but nothing moved. Nothing breathed. Yet I felt it, something watching me from behind, just out of sight. I reached for the mirror. As soon as my fingertips touched the glass, it rippled like water, and something behind the mirror moved. Fast, I stumbled back, heart in my throat. I should have left. I should have burned that house to the ground and never looked back. But instead, I walked down the hall. The silence was deafening. Every door I passed whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, just sounds. Murmurs, like memories bleeding through wood. And then I found the room, the mirror room. It was at the end of the hallway. Massive, circular, and completely surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors. No furniture, no windows. Just mirrors, dozens of them. Each one facing inward, reflecting one another. An infinite loop of my image bouncing between panes of glass. Except, not all the reflections were mine. Some were smiling when I wasn't. Some blinked out of sync. One looked older than me, thinner, pale. I stepped inside. The second my foot touched the center of the room, the door slammed shut behind me. Lights flickered. And then they moved. The reflections, all of them, not at once, but slowly, rhythmically, like a breath. And then, one by one, they began to disappear. Not fade, disappear. Black glass replacing each mirror until only one remained. One final mirror directly in front of me. My reflection stared back. This time it was me, but it looked tired. And then it spoke. "You're not supposed to be here yet." I froze. My lips didn't move, but the voice in the mirror did. "What? What is this? You should have waited. You should have burned the key." "What key?" "I don't. You already opened the door. Now it's watching. Now it's hungry." Suddenly the reflection changed. It twitched. Face twisted. Eyes bled black, and then it screamed. A horrible, guttural sound that cracked the glass. I fell backward, landing hard on the wooden floor. Shards of mirror scattered around me, but no blood. No cuts. The room was dark now. Dead quiet, until I heard it again, from all around me. "He's inside now. We see you, Jason. You don't belong. You brought the key. "Let us out." I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't care where, I just needed to get out of that room. I threw my shoulder into the door and burst into the hallway. But the hallway was wrong. It wasn't the same one I came from. The wallpaper was darker, moldy. The paintings were different. They weren't portraits anymore. They were mirrors. And all of them showed me, only not me now. Versions of me, dying, running, crying, screaming. In one, I was burning alive. In another, I was being dragged by my feet into darkness. And in the one nearest the end, I was staring at something just behind me. A tall, faceless figure. Wearing my uncle's clothes, I ran. Room after room, door after door. None of them led outside. All of them had mirrors. I smashed one with a chair. It screamed. The glass didn't just shatter, it bled. Thick, black blood that pulsed like it was alive. I backed away, breath shaking. I needed to find the key, the one Francis mentioned. He said it was in the attic box. I had to go up. Up was worse. The attic stairs were hidden behind a false panel in the hallway. I only found it because one of the reflections pointed to it. I didn't want to trust them, but I had no other choice. The attic smelled like rot and mold, like something had died and decided to stay. And in the center, lit by a single flickering bulb, was the old box. The same one Francis had left me after the funeral. I had never opened it before. I reached for the latch, and the bulb went out. Darkness swallowed the room, and something moved. I turned on my phone flashlight, shaking, barely able to hold it steady. And I saw them, faces, dozens, pressed against the mirrors, silent, watching, waiting. I opened the box. Inside was the key. Small, brass, cold to the touch. And a note. Break the mirror in the basement. Use the key. Don't look at your reflection. No matter what it says, something was coming. I didn't wait. I grabbed the key and ran. I didn't look back. Not when the attic door slammed shut behind me. Not when the walls of the hallway whispered things I didn't want to understand. Not even when the reflections in the frames began to reach out, arms stretching, fingers scraping the inside of the glass. I gripped the key tighter, brass, cold, slightly pulsing like a heartbeat. I needed to get to the basement. Uncle Francis said that's where it all started, where the mirror needed to be broken, and I had exactly one full moon worth of time left. The basement door was at the far end of the main hall. I hadn't noticed it when I first arrived. That's because it hadn't been there. I swear it hadn't, but now it was. Wooden, chipped, nailed shut from the outside with rusted boards and thick chains. The words "Keep Closed" were scratched violently across it, and above it, nailed into the doorframe, hung a mirror. Not a large one, just enough to catch my face. I kept my eyes down. Don't look, I told myself, don't give it your face. I grabbed a crowbar from the fireplace and began prying the boards loose. Each nail squealed like it was screaming not to be disturbed. The chains took longer. I don't even know how I broke them, just adrenaline, fear, and the absolute need to finish this. When the last board fell, the door creaked open. A wave of rot hit me. Not just the smell of decay, history, grief, death. Like the walls were still mourning something. I turned on my flashlight. Concrete steps descended into a sea of darkness, and at the bottom, just barely visible, was a mirror, taller than any of the others, 7 feet high, framed in something black and slick, wet-looking, and behind the mirror, a door, a real one this time, one I couldn't see in the house above. As I stepped into the basement, everything shifted. The air felt heavier, the floor seemed to slope, the walls narrowed, and my flashlight flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. I reached the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, no delay, no distortion. But something was off. The mirror version of me looked too calm, too still, like he was waiting for something. And then he blinked. Not me, him. Jason. Jason, let us out. I raised the key. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. According to Francis's note, I had to break the mirror and then use the key. But how do you break something that's watching you? Something that knows your thoughts before you do? I took a deep breath, lifted the crowbar, and swung. Glass exploded. But instead of shards falling to the ground, the mirror absorbed it. Like a ripple through a pond, the surface bent inward, deepened, stretched. The whole basement groaned like it was inhaling. And then darkness. I blacked out. I woke up standing. Not lying, standing. In a hallway. Not the house's hallway. This one was darker, made entirely of mirrors. Every wall, every inch. My reflection lined the corridor infinitely in both directions. And each version of me was doing something slightly different. One was crying, one was screaming silently, one was slowly bleeding from the eyes. I turned around and came face to face with myself. Only it wasn't me. He was grinning. You broke the seal. You let us in? Now you're part of the house. What the hell are you? We are what watches. We are what remembers. We are what comes next. Suddenly, all the reflections began to peel away like old wallpaper. Beneath them, eyes, thousands of them, blinking, swirling, watching. I ran. No direction, no plan, just pure survival. Mirrors shattered around me as I moved. Hands reached out from the broken glass, clawing at my legs, my back. One hand grabbed the back of my neck, cold and wet, and I tore free with a scream. Finally, up ahead, I saw a door, not mirrored, not twisted, wood, simple, real. I slammed into it and burst through. I was back in the house. Basement. Real basement. But it looked different. The mirror was gone. The wall behind it had crumbled, revealing a narrow passageway that descended even further underground. Stone stairs this time, not wood, not man-made. Carved, uneven, ancient. I looked behind me. The door I'd come through? Gone. Just wall. The house was changing, responding like it knew I was close, like it was alive. I took a step down, then another. The whispers followed. So did the eyes. They say basements are where the past sleeps. This one? It was where the past screamed. The deeper I went down the stone staircase, the less the air felt like air. It pressed against my skin, buzzed in my ears, smelled like damp stone and burnt hair. My flashlight flickered. I tapped it. Nothing. Then it died. I kept going in the dark. Each step felt colder than the last. And then the whispers began again. Not loud, not frantic. Personal, direct. Jason, we remember you. You were the quiet one, the lonely one. You stared into the mirror too long as a child. You already belonged to us. I reached the bottom. The stairs emptied into what looked like a chamber. Circular. walls lined with mirrors, some cracked, others gleaming. But these were different. They didn't reflect me. They reflected memories. I stepped up to one and gasped. It was my childhood bedroom, back in Florida, age 6. I was sitting on the floor, talking to the mirror, but there was no one in the reflection with me. Just me and something standing behind the glass. A silhouette, watching. The Jason in the memory turned around, but didn't see it. The whisper beside me giggled. I moved to the next mirror. This one showed me as a teenager, crying. In my old basement, flashlight in hand. My uncle shouting from upstairs. Then I noticed it again, the same shadow in the background. Unmoving, unblinking, always just out of focus. The next mirror, my parents' funeral. I was 12, alone, everyone around me blurred. But the casket reflected something that shouldn't have been there. A second Jason, standing by the trees, watching the whole thing. Suddenly the mirrors began to turn. Not me, them. The glass rotated inward, like doors unlocking. Each one opened into blackness, and out of that blackness came the same thing, a figure, 7 feet tall, humanoid but wrong. Its body shimmered like liquid shadow, face featureless except for one detail. It wore my uncle's smile, the chamber filled with them. One by one they stepped out of the mirrors. Dozens, then hundreds, not rushing, not screaming, just approaching, surrounding me. What do you want from me? To be seen, to be let in. You opened the door. Now you carry the house. I pulled out the key, held it in front of me like a crucifix. They all froze, every shadow, every version, every mirror, frozen in place, like someone hit pause. Then they dropped to their knees, bowed in perfect silence. What the hell are you? One of them looked up, not at me, at the key, and then it spoke. That key doesn't open doors, Jason. It seals them, and you're too late. The floor beneath me cracked. From the center of the chamber, a hole began to open, wide, growing, something massive shifting below. A heartbeat, alive, real. Then the voice came again, but not from one shadow, from all of them, in perfect, whispering unison. It's waking up. The house is no longer sleeping. The whisper has a name, and it remembers yours. I turned to run, but there was no exit. The stairs were gone, walls closed in, mirrors shattered one by one, and behind each one, a mouth, twisting, gaping, sobbing, screaming. The room tilted. The shadows reached for me. And then I fell down through darkness and wind and voices that weren't mine until I hit ground, but not floor. Dirt, grave dirt. I was in a field. At night, empty, cold, but in front of me stood the house, the Elder Pines estate, but not abandoned, lit, alive, breathing, and I was 12 years old again. My arms were small. Clothes didn't fit. I touched my face smooth. I had gone back, not just in place. In time, I heard the front door creak open. A familiar voice called out, "Jason, come on, you're gonna miss it." I turned. It was my mom, alive, smiling, just like the last time I saw her. I stood there, barefoot in the grass, staring at the house I thought I'd left behind. But everything was wrong. It looked perfect. Fresh paint, bright lights in the windows, a porch swing creaking gently in the wind. The Elder Pines estate wasn't supposed to be like this. Not alive, not welcoming. and I wasn't supposed to be 12 years old again. My hands were small. I could feel my front tooth loose in my mouth. Even my voice, when I whispered to myself, cracked like a boy's. But my mind? My mind was still me, adult Jason, trapped in a child's body. "Jason," my mom called again, stepping out onto the porch. "Come on, sweetie, your uncle's almost here." I stood frozen. She looked exactly how I remembered her: floral blouse, warm smile, soft eyes. But there was something off, a little too perfect, a little too still, like someone had painted her into the world. She waved again. "Don't be shy now. Come inside, baby." I walked forward slowly. My legs moved on their own. The screen door felt heavy, like it didn't want me to enter, or like it was holding something in. Inside the house, the smells hit me. Pancakes, cinnamon, coffee. Childhood. The warm kitchen. The ticking clock. My mom humming an old gospel song. If I hadn't known what was waiting in the real house above, I might have believed it was real. She turned around and smiled at me. "Why are you staring like that, huh?" she teased. "You're acting like you've seen a ghost." "I missed you." Her smile faltered just slightly, almost like she didn't expect that. She reached out and hugged me, and for a second, just 1 second, I let go. I let it feel real. I buried my face into her and smelled her hair and forgot about the mirrors and the whispering and the shadow versions of myself, and she whispered into my ear, "You should have never come back." I froze, pulled away. She was still smiling, but her eyes had changed. They were black, bottomless. She blinked once, and when she opened them again, they were normal, like nothing had happened. "Go set the table, baby," she said, walking to the sink. "Uncle Francis will be here soon." The kitchen clock struck 3:33. Everything went silent. This isn't real. This is a memory, a trap. But why this one? Why this day? I walked into the dining room, heart thudding in my tiny chest. The table was set for three plates, 3 glasses, 3 sets of silverware. That was wrong. There should have been 4. Dad was still alive that year, wasn't he? I heard the front door open. Uncle Francis stepped in, but not as I remembered him. He was too tall. His suit hung awkwardly on his thin frame. His smile looked stitched on. He sat across from me at the table and stared, not blinking. "Long time, little man," he said. His voice echoed from all directions. The room seemed to stretch, like a fisheye lens. "Like a dream. This isn't real. You're not real." "No, Jason, but you are, and we've been waiting to see you again." He reached into his coat, pulled out a mirror shard, held it out to me. "Do you remember what you did?" he asked. Suddenly I was outside again. Same house, but it was night. Rain pounding. Police lights, my mom screaming, my dad gone, and me? Standing in front of a shattered mirror in the hallway, holding a piece in my hand, blood on my fingers. No, that never happened. Didn't it? I turned and saw my younger self staring at me. Same clothes, same haircut, same cut on his cheek. But his smile was wrong, too wide, too calm. "Want to see what's behind the mirror?" he asked. Then he took my hand and ran toward the hallway. The hallway was infinite now, mirrors on both sides. The young me laughed as we ran. Every mirror showed a different version of that night. In one I was crying while being pulled into the mirror by hands. In another, I was screaming, "Mom," as the house burned. In another, I was just staring blank-eyed at a mirror that showed nothing. Then we stopped. My younger self pointed. "Look." In the final mirror, I saw myself now. Adult Jason, back in the basement, alone, surrounded. Young Jason, that's where you really are. You're still down there. You never left. I stepped forward, reached out. The glass rippled. I pressed both palms into it and was yanked through. I landed hard. Cold stone floor. The basement. Real again. Back in my body. The chamber was darker than before. The key was still in my hand. But something was different. A crack had opened in the far wall, and behind it, light, flickering, dim, like torches or lanterns, and a voice, Uncle Francis, calling, whispering, "Jason, you made it. Now it's time to finish what you started." The crack in the wall led to a final chamber. It wasn't part of the house. This place was older, carved from stone and time itself. The air was thick, too thick, like breathing through wet cloth. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were chanting, "Come down deeper. Bring the key. Break the seal. Join the memory." The hallway was lined with faces. Not people, not statues. Faces pressed into the walls. Some screaming, some smiling, some still moving. I didn't stop to study them. I couldn't, because I was running out of time, and I finally understood what this place was. The house wasn't haunted. It was the haunting. The mirrors, they weren't decorations. They were doors. And when Francis broke the first seal decades ago, he didn't awaken a ghost. He awakened a memory so strong, so hungry, it began to think, and then it began to feed. At the center of the final chamber stood a structure. Not quite an altar, not quite a throne. It was built from mirror shards fused with bone and rusted metal, and behind it, was it, the thing in the walls? Faceless, gigantic, crawling with versions of me, of Francis, of strangers, a composite of memory, a reflection that no longer needed a mirror. I approached slowly. The key in my hand burned hotter now. The voice spoke not from the creature, but from every surface. "You brought us in when you were a child. You stared too long, and we took a piece. We whispered, you listened. Now we are whole. It wasn't coincidence. It had been grooming me, waiting for me to return, waiting for me to bring the key to the final chamber, the one that sealed it inside. Francis hadn't failed. He'd trapped it, and I had just opened the door. I stood before it, shaking, barely able to breathe. The creature stretched its limb, dozens of them, toward me. Each limb was me, a version, a moment, a life I could have lived. Some good, some monstrous, and it whispered, "Choose one. Pick a self and forget the rest. We will make it perfect. No grief, no guilt, no pain." It was offering me a way out, a false life, a loop. No. I held up the key. For a moment everything froze. The room shook. The thing screamed, not with sound, but with thought. It rushed me, and I stabbed the key into the base of the mirror throne. Everything shattered. The walls cracked. The faces screamed. The mirrors imploded one by one, pulling their victims back into shards. The creature howled in infinite voices. Francis, my mom, me, others I had never met. The stone ceiling began to collapse. The entire house, the entire reality, was falling in on itself. I closed my eyes, let go, accepted the darkness. I woke up on a bench outside a gas station just outside of Willow Creek. It was morning. Bright, cool, clean, no sign of the house, no note, no key. Just me, alone, alive. The headlines 2 weeks later mentioned a sinkhole swallowing an old, condemned house in the woods. No remains were found. No history even existed of the Elder Pines estate. Not on Google. Not in town records. Not even in Francis's death certificate. It was like the house never existed, but I remember. Every whisper, every version of me, every mirror. And sometimes when I pass a hallway mirror in my apartment, I swear I see someone else blinking back.